So I'm going to talk to you today on the topic of musical theater and white supremacy. Get ready. Keep in mind, at the end of the session, we'll be having a Q&A. So as you have those questions, keep them percolating in the back of your mind so you can ask them. Here's Storm.
Thank you, Rose. Okay, can you hear me? Are you nervous? White supremacy. Fucked up. Okay. Okay, so we're here. We have an hour, 45 minutes, plus 15 minutes Q&A, right? To talk about white supremacy in musical theater. We, many of you, are representing your departments, right? So as you're listening to this, as you are letting the words sink in, I want you to be thinking about not just yourself, but also your department as a whole. You represent them, but you're also not them, so it's okay. We're here because we want to ask this question: what is the connection between white supremacy and musical theater? What is it? Why? For many people in our departments, the question actually starts earlier. Is there a connection between white supremacy and musical theater?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, is there a connection between white supremacy and musical theater?
Yes.
Oh, so you know. Me too. But what is it, right? What is it? How can we be curious about it? There was a time when I was doing slides, but I just wanted to talk to you. One of the slides would be like, Rolf wooing little Liesel or whatever. Nazis, white supremacists, our characters are flawed. We have a problem. Characters, though, are the bottom of the list. They're the product, the thing that emerges, right, from a culture. So who am I? What makes me qualified to talk about white supremacy in musical theater? Okay, I teach. I'm a teacher. I taught at UArts. When I was there, I taught a class called Black Musical Theater. I taught New Musical Theater Workshop, Beginner and Advanced. I taught at Playwrights Downtown. Right now I teach at Sarah Lawrence. I teach 2 classes there, songwriting for New Musical Theater, and an MFA studio class that's called Sound, Storytelling, and Society, which is really fun. I also teach at NYU in the Theater Studies Department. I teach queer musical theater. I teach history of musical theater. Okay, none of those things qualify me to talk about white supremacy in musical theater in and of itself, right? Those are effects. Because I talk about it, I got those things, I do that work, right? I'm also an artist, ooh, yay. Yeah, I make musicals, I compose, I write, I'm a lyricist, I'm a drummer, plus other things, right? As an artist, I've worked with Berkeley NYC, Musical Theater Factory, Soho Rep, Ars Nova, The Public, blah-dee-da-dee-da, whatever. Does that qualify me? No. None of those things are qualifications, right? Somebody else mentioned this, I guess. You know, I also did not study musical theater in my undergraduate degree. I studied the use of arts in resistance movements, right? I studied social justice, the history, the practice, the theory, blah-de-da. That also doesn't qualify me. Why? Because I just read books. Right? Books don't qualify you to speak from the heart about the effects of oppression on your life and the life of others, right? What do you need to be qualified to do that? Nothing, okay? Nothing. Especially in theater departments, I think it can feel like, ooh, I don't want to be the one who has to talk about it. And I'd like us to shift that thinking now. What qualifies me to speak about white supremacy in musical theater is that I hate white supremacy. I fucking hate it. Do you?
Yes.
How much?
So
When I think about, I said this yesterday too, I say ooh to people like at a party or something, what do you do? I'm in musical theater. And they're like, really? I think a look comes over their face because they know what musical theater looks like or feels like, who is exalted and how they're exalted. So they look at me and they're like, what are you doing? I ask myself the same question every day. What am I doing? But I hate white supremacy to the core most being of myself. When I think about it, it makes me nauseous and angry and sweaty. Yeah. Do you? Right? When it sinks in to you that you hate white supremacy, okay, it's a whole different world, right? Who cares about your department? Who fucking cares? If you hate white supremacy and you are standing steady in your feet and ready to attack that regime, there is nothing that's ever gonna stop you or stand in your way, right? Do we have a fear of open conflict? I love this one because it just really sets something in for me, right? Why would you be afraid of open conflict if you're in power? Why would you be afraid of open conflict, right? Because then someone's gonna walk up and say, hey, I think your behavior is aligning itself with white supremacy. Then what are you gonna do, you know what I mean? You either have to change or say I'm a white supremacist. What are you gonna do? You don't. The fear of open conflict is tied to a sense of a right to comfort, right? Do we feel in the musical theater industry that people have like an innate right to be comforted or to feel comfortable, right? Well, this is my show, so I want to have people on my show who are gonna help me do my thing, who are gonna help me accomplish my task, who are gonna be in service to me, who are gonna work for me, right? And I don't want those people to be complaining or like rabble-rousing or telling me that my work is lacking, right? You wouldn't want that. I do, personally. Right? Is politeness valued over honesty? Does white fragility go unchecked? Feedback. Especially as educators. How do we give feedback? How do you give feedback on a piece that you don't understand? If you didn't understand it, did you say, I didn't understand it? Or did you lie, right? Did you search for something that you could say because you didn't want to seem incompetent, or you didn't want to seem irrelevant, right? Is there a sense of urgency in our industry that is used to oppress people for the value of progress, right? I think that sense of urgency piece for us is important, right? We are wanting to make changes to the industry, but not how fast it moves, or where it is, or what the requirements for being in that building are, right? If you miss the show must go on. No matter what, it's a perfect match. Musical theater and white supremacy, they go together, right? When the KKK started the performative like wing of white supremacy, right? They go on tour, they do their little shows. They're singing, they're dancing, they're reading text, right? There is something powerful about the way that musical theater combines, right? That's what makes us powerful. something like Seasons of Love, the song, right? It is just a song, but did it not travel the globe, raising money and raising awareness for queerness, right? Raising money for research into HIV/AIDS, right? Musical theater is powerful, and that's why I'm here. Because I think it's a great place to occupy. I think it's a perfect place to fight white supremacy, right?
What do we as teachers, like, how do we go broke?
Look, I don't make a lot of money. So I would say that, how do we go for broke? I was talking about this the other day that, you know, there are many, many different roadblocks or gates that are kept along the way, right? Especially for musical theater, right? What's the main point or the foundation is music. Music is really important to me. I'm a lover of music, but I didn't get an opportunity to study music growing up, right? It was one or two people along the way that handed me, you know, this instrument and said, hey, write this song or whatever, right? And some of those things were given to me without having to pay for them. And if I had had to pay for them, I wouldn't be here. And if it cost me emotionally, I also wouldn't be here. So for me, I think going for broke means being a real mentor, finding somebody that you can really mentor and just help them along, even if it means buying them lunch because they look a little hungry, things like that. And that's just like, that's money, but I mean emotionally. Investing.
Thank you so much for this. This was wonderful.
I'm
As
glad.
we're talking about all of these tenets of white supremacy and how they relate to musical theater, I find myself also thinking about how they relate to higher education. So as we're going through this list, right, and I'm thinking like predominantly white leadership, check, fear of open conflict,
All the things.
power hoarding, scarcity mindset, competition, paternalism, like all of it, I was like, wow, we really are facing this on two fronts. I'm so glad.
It's like intersectional or something.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're also in academia, so we can ask you, do you have any thoughts, since you feel that musical theater is like the best artistic mechanism to combat white supremacy, how can we do that in academia?
That is a good question. I'm gonna just, okay. Okay. We can start by asking ourselves the exact same questions in the exact same way as you've already done. Thank you. When was your school established? And who established it? What did they establish it to do? I think education in America is super specific, right? Because it was created as a socializing mechanism, right? For good reasons, right? Places where, ideally, places where every kid can eat or shower even in the beginning, right? So how can we fill up that engine that's already going of socialization and put in other elements, other things, right? I personally feel that education in this country is flawed, right? And we are all participants in this flawed system, myself included. It's like NYU is a white supremacist organization, and I teach about white supremacy in it. So I'm not sure, honestly, I don't know, but what can we do to throw a wrench in the system? The right wrench, not just like wrenches. There's this thinker, this really smart trans thinker, Dean Spade. And he's often talking about, a lot of change happens with tiny bureaucratic decisions, right? How can we how can we put ourselves in the position on our local government or on the SEC committee or whatever to be standing in the change, to be pushing that forward. But again, I think it's like what brings this Venn diagram together is musical theater. That's the powerful thing, right? So you get people participating in musical theater, and you make their participation as the least amount of harmful as you can. Start there. Honestly, start at because I think we know a lot of students in musical theater education programs are verbally, mentally abused, right? Put in positions to be taken advantage of, right? Literally harmed. In our industry, we know that that's true, right? So how can we just start by lessening harm to the people that we have around us? Yeah, change. I think change, we have to add to our canon. If the loop's ever going to change, if we're ever going to add to our canon and the loop is ever going to change, we need to inspire students and other people who are not in educational institutions to create new musical theater in new ways, right? I'm done talking now.
Ladies and